so I've had a little bit of time this weekend fitting struts up to the back of my Tanami, and I'm starting at the end because over the course of the job I changed a few things as I went along. And for example, right at the start of the video coming up in this next bit, you'll see that I talk about using internal and external ball sockets or 10mm balls to mount the top and the bottom of the strut onto. That changed halfway through the job, and I ended up using external on top and bottom. So that's important to note. I'll talk about how I bought these ball sockets. I ended up halfway through the job having to go to Bunnings and get some external sockets because I didn't have some. The bolts I've got, I talk about them being 15mm. I think 10mm was going to do the job, and I'm going to swap all them out when the shop opens on Monday or Tuesday. I'll swap them out so that I can actually use 10mm, 5mm bolts, and I'm going to put dome nuts on them just so it looks a little bit prettier. So I started off with 15mm, and I've ended up with, I think I'll do 10s, so I'm just going to swap them out. It'll be pretty easy, just undo them and swap them. The measurements are in there, so pay attention to that. The only thing I could probably change, I've used 535mm struts. You can get 502. It's really just a case of swapping struts if I'm not happy. And I did bore a few holes in the wrong spot, which I'm going to cover up, but pay attention to the measurements that I use because my mistakes can save you making some. And because I didn't have any measurements, I just sort of went off what I thought. So the measurements are mentioned in there, but I will tell you now, the measurements from the back of the van to the center of the top ball is 160mm. And the measurement for the bottom ball is from the bottom of the van, and I show you in the video, from the bottom of the van to the center of the bottom ball is 710mm. So they're important measurements to remember. If you're using 535, if you're using shorter than that, it won't make any difference. It'll just mean that your strut doesn't lift the lid as high. So I'll stop yabbering now. I know it does work, and you'll see that in the video. Hope it helps you do a fit out yourself. G'day, so I saw a video a little while ago, and a guy had done some gas struts on the back of his Tanami, and he'd done it so that the bed end would, you could just hit the little switches, the little locks, and the tailgate would then flip up and you could just pull the ends out. And I thought, that's a really clever idea. And I also thought, I'm a bit sick of it because for me, I quite often have to flip the lid up, balance it on my head while I'm trying to pull the bed sides out. And that's annoying. So I thought I'm gonna have a go at that. And today I thought I'd video it and video the process so that should you wish to have a go at it, you can too. So the parts I've used, I've got 2 internal stainless steel brackets, and they are the part numbers you can see there. Hopefully they're not back to front, they kind of look like they are, but anyway, so I've got 2 of them. 2 external brackets. I've got 8 15mm stainless steel bolts with nuts and nylock washers. I've also got 2 gas struts, which are the same as the one that this fella used. He said, I think 535mm and 300N, and I don't know what the N means, but I thought, well, he's used them, I'll use them. So that's them there. There's your part number if you do need to find them. So I've got 2 of them. And I've got a piece of flat aluminium, which I'll talk about in a second. And all up so far, it's cost $87 for everything. So in theory, if I don't bugger this up, 87 bucks will see the back of my Tanami lifting up just nicely. So what I'm going to do with this is inside the lip, when you fold up where the seal sits, there's about this much space. That's a technical measurement. This is 25mm and it's 3mm thick. And I'm going to clean it down so that it fits inside that lip, and then hopefully from the inside I will reinforce it. Don't know if it's going to work or not. I'll reinforce it from the inside, bolt from the inside out, and then you should only just see on the outside a bracket and the heads of my stainless steel bolts, and I'll seal it all up, and that should be it, hopefully. If it does distort, start to do things wrong, then I will go to plan B and I'll get some aluminium angle and I'll just basically swap it to the outside, the reinforcement to the outside, which shouldn't be a big deal. But I thought I'd try this first because it's much more discreet and I would rather discreet, hopefully. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing I've got to do is I've got one of my gas struts out of the packet, and on the end of it, it's got the ball already fitted, and I need that out because I'm not bolting through any brackets. The brackets that I have are pre-fitted. Now I'm assuming that the 10mm ball on this bracket will fit, but it's a very simple method to swap the ball socket over. There's a little clip here which I can just, in theory, pull back out of the way like I've done, and the little ball comes out, and I should then be able to slot my bracket in, which I've done, and let that clip go. Now I don't want to do that just yet because I want to mount these first and then do it the other way, but that's the first step I'm going to have to do. Is just on all of them I'm going to have to undo that little clip simply by just hooking a little screwdriver or something that you may have underneath there, slightly pulling back, and that'll release the pressure on that ball so that you can swap over and use your brackets instead of the pre-fitted ball. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so I've cut two pieces which are going to be my reinforcing pieces on the inside of the lid, and they are cut at close enough to 280mm long. And you might be saying, why did you bother cutting it at 280mm long? Well, there's no specific science in this. I just looked at the video that the other guy had done, and I noticed that his reinforcing bracket was pretty much the length of the gas strut. And this is not quite, but that's what I made it at, so that it's the same, pretty much the same length as the strut when it's closed up. So that's how it's going to be, 280mm for these. And I'm now going to just shave a bit off the edge of those so that it will fit up in that seal space. I'll do that now. It's really hot. That took way longer than I'd hoped. For you it was a moment, for me it was a while. These get really hot, and there was significant, I thought I'd be able to just do it by gently taking it down on top of the belt sander, but that turned out not to be true. So I got aggressive and took them down to size with a grinder. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 4 holes, 1 at each end, and two for the brackets. Then once I've marked and drilled those, I will fit them up and drill through the roof, the exciting bit, and put my bracket on the outside. And that'll allow me to then mount the bracket on the top of the hood. Once I've mounted the bracket to the top of the hood, I can then mount the bracket to the body of the van itself. So I'll go and mark my 4 holes and we'll be right. So I've just measured these 30mm in from each end, and then I'll put the brackets bang in the center of each bracket, each plate, put them bang in the center, mark my 2 holes on that as well. And my aim is that when you look at the outside, I'm not going to have bolts on one side, bolts on the other side. So I'm trying to be a little bit careful about how I mark them, so I just clamp them both together. So I've got my 30mm mark across both pieces. I don't know if you can see, it's a real fine line, but anyway, it's a scribe mark. And then I've just got to put my brackets dead center, and I'll scribe that mark as well. Then I'll take it over to the drill press and do these, which will give me the holes that I need to put in the roof. Hopefully that works. Right, so I'm at the no turning back stage. I'm about to drill some holes, but I'm just going to drill them for the actual external bracket, and then I'll do some measuring and go from there. But I'm basically going to place this up in the spot, drill the 2 bracket holes, and then once I've done that, I'll measure exactly where these holes need to be from this edge, and I'll duplicate it on the other side. So no turning back. Right, so I've got my 5mm screws, bolts, and these are stainless, which may over time react with the aluminium. But with stainless, always put a little bit of lube on the thread, stainless on stainless. Just stops them binding up. Stainless does tend to bind up at times when you're just putting 2 together. So a bit of WD-40 or something on the threads before you put them in, and you'll be away. Okay, so I've got one there, and I'm just going to hang the strut off it so I can get where I've got to go down here. But that's sort of what I'm going for at the moment. I'm just going to tweak that and straighten it up a bit. So as you can see, that's how it's hanging on there. I've swapped the ball over as I was talking about before, and that's on. So now I've got to come down here and mount the other bracket to the very, as you can see, that's a very thin edge. I'm going to now bore a hole into that, 2 holes actually, and put a rivet on it. 2 rivets, hopefully they'll be strong enough. One. So let me just close this down, and I just want to see how it works. Okay, from the time I closed it down to now, there's been a bit of a gap. So it'll be confession time in a minute, but I've got it closed down now, and I'll have to change some other stuff, so I actually can't finish it off today, but I'll click the button. And it goes to there, only because I've only got one strut on. I'm assuming when I put my other strut on, it'll actually be okay. So I'll prop it back up in a second. All right, confession time. In the first bit where I closed it down, and I'll switch the camera around. I went to close it up, and it actually compressed that up too far. So I was faced with the oh no type moment. So the brackets are still there and all that sort of stuff, but I actually had to shift this from here to here. And it now compresses it up completely, and it lifts it a little bit high. But when you open it right up, you can just pull that down a little bit on it, and it locks it up fine. So there's always a little bit of gas compression on it. I basically brought this in from the body, the same measurements as the guy that did the other one, but I think I came in 160, but I'll check that later. And I'll have to do the same on the other side, so 160 from the body to the center of the post. And I was able to get away with not shifting that, which was good because I was a bit concerned that I was going to have holes where I was going to have to shift stuff. I do have a hole up the top, but I'm going to be a little bit creative, and I'm going to put another bolt in that hole. So there'll be 2 holes on this end, and there'll be 1 hole on the other end. It'll all look okay from the outside, and I won't have any holes to leak, but that's where it's at so far. Okay, so this is a different day. That's why I have a different shirt. I didn't figure you needed to see me do both sides. So I'm going to give you some measurements for those who like specs. So here, if you want to know where to place your little thingy, I've got it set at, from this part of the van to the center of the ball is 160 mil, or pretty close to 165, I think it is, 160 mil. So if you're looking, so if you want to know exactly how far from here to here, the center of the ball is 160. I think I got that side at 160, so I've just got this one just off. But 160 mil is the measurement. Now the bottom bracket, I'll show you that one. All right, so bottom bracket, I've measured from the bottom of the van to the center of the ball. I'm struggling here to hold two things up. There you go. So from the bottom of the van to the center of the ball is 710 mil. So from this little ledge here, up to the actual center of the ball is 710 mil. So the top one from the body of the van out to the center of the ball is 160, and for the bottom one it's 710. Don't forget, I'm using 535 mil struts, which will change things. So let's close it up. If you chose a shorter one, you'll see why in a second. I've got a little, it's not an issue, it's just something that might irk some of you, but I'll show you what happens. Let's test it and see what happens. All right, so now we'll test it. So I've only got this latch here, so all I've got to do is, and up she goes, and then I should be free now to have three do this. This side's a lot higher. That's okay. And as you can see, packing up, no holding things anymore. And I can just bring it down. And when I unlock it,